I am going to record this, so hopefully I do it right.
Watch this at home at 3 in the morning.
You could watch this at home at 3 in the morning, or you could engage with the class. We've got like 30 people here. As far as the Zoomers know, it's amazing. Okay, let's dive into it. Welcome, BOOTCAMP. Woo! BOOTCAMP. I love BOOTCAMP. Today we're going to talk about opportunities, and there's a few new things in opportunities that came out at MegaCamp that we're going to go through today. So the very first thing, though, that we do in this class is we review what we talked about previously. So previously we went through contacts. Contacts is where you store your database. So if I click on this magical red box, it opens up and lets me see contacts. This is where you store your database, best practice with your database. What do you mean? You probably have bad cookies. So free cookies, yes. Best practice, really quick. If you are using command and something doesn't load, it's probably a cookies problem. So the way you fix that is on the top right. I need to update my Google Chrome, but there's a little button called New Incognito Window. Incognito doesn't use cookies. That will wipe out that problem. Okay? I should be using incognito, but I'm not because I'm lazy. So.
I hear that all the time. What is the reason? Is it so?
It's literally cookies, because the cookies are like the aspects of the coding that get saved in the background of your search, right? And so when they do an update, that old code is still implemented, and so it doesn't coincide with the new code on the website, and so it just causes an error, basically.
I saw one of the Ignite teachers saying you should always use
incognito, yeah.
Especially on like the Utah.
Yeah, it's a common thing. Sorry, what was your question?
I was just going to ask if I could just clear the cache if that works.
Yeah, either way, incognito or clearing your cache, probably both those will work. The problem with clearing your cache is that that's not a long-term solution because it will probably happen again because it will keep saving your cookies, and then that makes sense. So, all right, back into it. Welcome. So we talked about contacts. Organize your contacts. There are best practices for that with tags. I have this recorded, so if you want a copy of it, let me know. But make sure you tag your people. Make sure you get smart plans going to help automate you reaching out to your people. How many times do we reach out to our people a year? Class? 36. How many times do we call them? We had it 4. Good. We're learning, right, Cindy? How many times do you call your people every year? Just not the head shake. That's totally fine. Text Marco Polo. Okay, so other avenues. Marco Polo, that I'll allow it. I will allow it. So, as the reigning judge, just kidding. So let's talk about opportunities. So when you're calling your people those 36 times a year, those 4 times a year and reaching out to them 36 times. By the way, are those max or minimum numbers? Minimum, right? So you could call your people 10 times a year or 40 times a year, or you can Marco Polo them 40 times a year like Cindy does. But when you're reaching out to your people, at some point, someone's going to say they're interested to buy or sell, right? So then the question is, now what? That's where opportunities come into play. So the overview of opportunities, just to give you a general mindset, is that this is tracking your pipeline. This is telling you who is interested all the way from maybe a year out to I'm closing their deal. And how many people do I have in each of those sections? Okay? So that's what we're going to track in our opportunities. So if I'm in my contacts and I'm calling Alyssa here, the easiest way to do this, because ideally when I'm calling Alyssa, I am in here adding an activity that I called her and talking about what I talked about, right? Talked about this yesterday. I can go into my opportunities right here and create a new opportunity because Alyssa says that she's interested. Any questions so far? I haven't done anything crazy yet. Feel like understanding this on a perfect level. Cindy, you for sure? Killing it.
I'll call you tomorrow.
Okay, call me tomorrow.
My opportunity card for you is going to be.
Perfect. Perfect. I love it.
180 point contact.
180 point. That's right. So when I'm scrolling down this, all of this is just kind of pointless stuff unless 2 things. One, you have a co-seller. So scenario, Alyssa is not the only decision maker in the household, right? Alyssa is married to John. And so I can go into here and I can say, okay, so where's John? There's Jonathan Randall. Alyssa and John are the decision makers. They're my client and co-seller, right? So I want to make sure I add those. The other one that's most important is the commission rate. You can't continue without the commission rate. You need to make sure you change that. Oh, I'm missing one too. When you create an opportunity, you have to, it will default to a listing. And if you create it as a listing and it's a buyer, you have to delete it and start over. So make sure that if it's a listing, you create it as a listing. If it's a buyer, you create it as a buyer, okay?
If you're helping somebody buy and then sell their home, just create two.
Those are two different opportunities, yep. An opportunity is for each transaction that you're doing. So in that scenario, those are two different transactions, right? Any questions? Feel good so far?
But if I call you and you aren't interested in real estate, but it's still contacted you, what am I gonna do?
So that's what we talked about yesterday. I'll send you the video that walks through that, because that will walk you through. So I'm just going from they said they're interested. But when you're just reaching out to your SOI, I'll send you that video. I walked through that yesterday. But yeah, that's different. That's just to answer it quickly though. In your timeline, that's where you add an activity and you say, I called Alyssa and this is what we talked about, right? So, okay, back to opportunities. So we'll create an opportunity for Alyssa. We'll pretend like this is it. And here we are. We've created an opportunity and suddenly this is our opportunity card. Now, before we get into our opportunity card, let's go back a step. So where is this? This is in Cultivate, in the watch stage. So if I go to my opportunities and I'm looking at listings, I can go into Cultivate. Please load. It would be really, really, really funny so if command didn't work during command bootcamp. That would be funny.
So that contact was in Iowa City?
Which contact, Alyssa?
Yeah.
No, she's in Arizona. So if I go to Cultivate, there we go. In the watch section of Cultivate, there is her opportunity. Okay? So what am I looking at here? Here we have our pipeline that we saw originally, right? That little graphic is basically what each of these 5 stages are right here. So I can switch between them. Active, under contract, closed, so on and so forth. And inside each one of these, you can design what the inside of this looks like, what kind of stages I have inside it. So let me minus out here so you can see kind of a more holistic view. But yeah, so in mine, I've got watch, nurture, and hot, which is pretty standard in the real estate industry. Basically what this means is watch is a year to 6 months. So I need to watch these people. Nurture is 6 months to 3 months. I need to work on getting these people to this point. And then hot is 3 months or less. So like those people that are hot, besides looking really, really good, they're the type of people. No one laughed at that? That was funny, just so you know. They're the type of people that are interested to go now, right? They're hot, smoking hot. Okay, so you can kind of customize this as you want. Honestly, you can have no stages in here if you don't want them. The way you manage these stages is I can go into edit stages here on the top when I'm inside one of these, and I can edit the stages inside. So I've got referral, hot, nurture, and watch. Again, this is not necessarily best practice, but it's probably the most common way to do it. But yeah, so you'll have a default. I can't remember what the default is. But anyway, any questions so far? Feel good? Shelby, how are we doing?
I'm good. I mean, I can't access my command yet, so
Oh,
I need to help me with that after the class.
oh, you can't get into command
I'm
yet?
following along with what you're doing.
Okay, we're gonna do this really quick. Okay, sorry for that brief pause, we're back. Okay, so where were we? We were talking about the stages, watch, nurture, hot, referral. You can customize the stages. In here, you can see I can drag them. So I can switch the order. I can edit the name. I can create a new stage. I can delete a stage. One of the most important things in here that you're going to need to do is create checklists for your stages, right? Because as your people are going through this pipeline, so scenario, I go back to listing cultivate. Here's Alyssa, right? Okay, suddenly Alyssa's 6 months out because I've been having good conversations with her. Oh, suddenly Alyssa's hot. See how I'm doing this also? I'm just dragging and dropping it. Oh, suddenly I have an appointment with Alyssa. Now she's over here. Oh, suddenly she's active. She's an active client, meaning I have a buyer broker or an ERS signed with her. This is a listing example, right? So I have an ERS signed with Alyssa. She is my active client. So now that she's an active client, now I can move her through all of these, showings, negotiations, legacy. Now I can go to under contract, right? Now that she's under contract, because now we put her house up on the MLS, we got a buyer, she's under contract. Now I can go through the whole process here, the inspection, the appraisal, financing, so on and so forth, right?
So, Josh, sorry, they stay in Cultivate until you sign the buyer broker and then you put them in the appointment stages?
So yeah, good question. The question was, they stay in Cultivate until they sign a buyer broker. Is that how it works? And the answer is yes and no. So it depends on how you want to do it. But the one in between is appointment. And so ideally, they stay in Cultivate until you set an appointment with them to actually meet with them face-to-face, and then they're an appointment, because that's a whole new level. If a client has actually met with you face-to-face, you should be getting far closer to having them sign something than you were before.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. And then would you put them in active once you've listed it?
And then active once they've signed the ERS or the buyer broker. Yep. And then for a listing, it's a little bit different. Like with a buyer, if it's under active, you're looking at homes. If it's a listing, if it's under active, you're trying to get the listing up on the MLS, right? And then under contract for both of those is obvious, yeah, right? Any questions on that? Now you'll notice in here that throughout each stage, each stage or each phase, these are called phases up top, and inside each phase there's a stage. There's a checklist. So I've got a checklist here. If I go to my edit stages, I've got 1 or 2 items on each spot. Now this is because I don't ever use this, because I don't actively do deals myself. I have been referring everybody out for the past year or 2. But best practice is to click here on these checklists and add your checklist into here. I don't know why pickleball is on there, probably because I just made something up one day. But like for an inspection, right? You need to order the inspection, and then you need to negotiate repairs, right? In case if that were to ever come up. Right? Or the appraisal, I need to order the appraisal, right? Financing, what do I need to do for financing? I need to make sure the CD gets out. I need to make sure blank, right? Clear to close. Now that we're clear to close, I need to do a final walkthrough with my client. I need to do so on and so forth, right? I'm talking a lot of buyer terms, but anyway, yes.
Can you take like a template that, for say you're doing a listing and then you add all these stages, is it going to move over?
Great question. So the question was, is there going to be like, if we make this, can we make it like a template for that goes into all of our clients once they get into that stage, basically, right? That's your question? So that's where, when you edit stages up here, if I go back to here, to this button, anything I do here will affect all of my clients. So this is like the master checklist, like you're thinking, right? If I go into here, I've got 3 items in inspection. I go back over here. Look at how these guys have only 2. Right? But if I move Alyssa in here, so it won't change people that I add later, but see how now Alyssa has 3 because I just added that into the template. I wonder if I take Amidala out and put her back in, yeah, she still has 2 because that's how it was created. So before you start getting all these opportunities into your pipeline, create a checklist. Now I have a checklist, an example of a checklist I can send to you guys. So if you're interested, if you're on the Zoom, throw it in the chat, throw your email in the chat. If you're here in class, let's talk after. Let's make sure I get your email. Don't let me forget. but I'm happy to send you a template for like an example of checklists of things that you need to remember to do. Megan, who's on Brad Morgan's team, do you guys know who Brad Morgan is? He's kind of a big deal. He had like $160,000 or $180,000 in closings in July, just in July this year. But Megan is his admin. She runs like everything for this guy. And so she graciously gave me her checklist, taking out their like team specific stuff so that we could pass them out. Isn't that awesome? Go Megan. Shout out to Megan. Anyway.
Can you show again, sorry, how you create the checklist from this page?
Yeah, creating the checklist, the checklist for everybody is in edit stages. So I go to edit stages, I just click on these right here, and then I can add or remove or whatever it is. And then back here, let's see, where am I at? Stage customization. I've got to go way faster. No, I'm okay. I'm at 18, I'm at 19, so I'm a minute over. I'm fine. But over here, if I edit this, I can edit Amidala's checklist specifically as well. So if I need something that's specific to Amidala, like she wants cookies, and I want to send her crumble cookies, right? I can add that to her checklist, and it will only be hers if I do it outside of edit stages. Okay? That makes sense? Cool. All right. So we're moving forward. Really quick, in checklist, this is brand new. It's called client update. Okay? So when you are creating your checklists, you can opt in to have emails go out for each individual item that updates your client every time you check out off an item a certain day of the week or every other blank amount of days or whatever it is, right? They'll send an email, and I'll show you what that email looks like. If I check that, does that allow me to see the template? No. So if you go into your name and go into settings, this is literally like 2 days old. Go into command settings and go into contacts, no, sorry, opportunity settings, and then client update. This is where you can kind of customize what you want. So up here, I've got the time zone. I want it to send at blank time, right? I want it to send to client and co-client or the primary client only, and I also want to send to owners. This is kind of customizing when you want it to be sent. If I click on preview here, this is what's going to be sent. So essentially it's, here's your branded image. Here's a little brief description. Hey, first name of contact. We're checking things off the list. Here's a summary of tasks completed for this address, right? Here's a picture of the house. Here's checklists. Here's everything I did. By your side every step, your name, right? This is just a default that Keller Williams has for now, but it's just really basic and straight to the point. One of the biggest problems, one of the biggest reasons why people will negotiate commission with you, they'll say, oh, will you do it for 2.5%? Because Homey will do it for whatever amount, right? Is because they don't understand how much you do on the back end. So this fixes that. This helps them understand, hey, look, I'm ordering your CD. I'm following up with your lender. We're scheduling the final inspection. We're going to the final inspection. Like, it walks them through every step of the way, right? So let's get rid of that. If I go back to opportunities and I go back to, where were we? Under contracts? Is that where Alyssa's was? Yeah. Close enough. Oh yeah, this is why you said Iowa City, because that's where the address was. Oh, sorry, I went too far. If I go back to edit stages, I can opt in items on this checklist to send those updates. So you don't have to do everything. Some of these things can be just your personal checklist item, right, that you don't want your client to see. But if you do, you can just check these boxes. And then once this is checked, whenever that time frame is, right, so let's say, for example, you said you want the email to be sent at 10 a.m. The next day, it will send out an email to your client saying, I did these things. Does that make sense? Is that cool or what? By the way, it will default from your market center, from your marketing profile. So on what day? Friday, we'll talk about the marketing profile. But at one point, you're going to want to fill out your marketing profile. And in it, it will have a from email, this right here. This is where it will say the email is coming from, basically. So just so you know, opportunities. Okay, we spent way too much time on that. Any questions? Client update. Okay, let's go to compliance. So someone's interested, you got them under contract. Now it's time to actually do the deal. So let's start over here. Let's go to contacts. We're going to create yet another opportunity for Alyssa. I love using Alyssa. She is a real person. This is my sister, and I just use her in like all of my classes. Don't tell her. Commission rate, we'll say 3%. Great opportunity. So we've got a brand new opportunity here. It's a listing. Oh, it's this one. Right? Yeah. Question mark? Or is it this one? It's this one. It's a listing, and this is what comes up. So this is called your contact card. Not contact card. This is called your opportunity card. Just like your contact card, this is where everything happens that has to do with the transaction. Your contact card is where everything happens that has to do with the, right? So in the opportunity card, you can see all this information about the deal. I can fill that out. I can fill out information about the property. If it's a listing, it's easier to just go into the MOS and just say, okay, I want all listings. And let's say it's that one, right? Then it autofills right here. And for the record, you have to do this. You have to make sure this gets filled out, the property, okay? But there are 3 major sections that you're going to need to worry about. Details, documents, and offers. Commissions will come up once you've done the offer, but I'll show you that in just a second. So when you're filling out the details, it's pretty straightforward. The 2 things to remember. So usually in each class, I have like 1 or 2 things that you must remember. Otherwise, just zone out. This is one of the 2 things that you must remember, okay? You have to fill in the property. And on the top, you've got this name up here, which is the name of the opportunity. You have to put the address in the name as well. That makes sense? This is how Molly will find your listing. Otherwise, you'll get an email from Molly saying, or you won't get an email from Molly. She'll post on Facebook and say, I have no idea who to pay. I've got $20,000 and I don't know who it belongs to. This is what the address is. Someone help me, right? So, yes.
It'd be nice if it said opportunity name plus address.
Yes, that's true. We can't change that though. Good point. I think that the address thing is temporary though, because I think that they are changing that. I think that they're pulling it from the listing in the future. But right now, the back end doesn't do that. So anyway. So yeah, it's just far easier for Molly to sort through it if you put the address in the name. So I don't know what that address was, but we'll just say 998 North, 1200 West. So, save. Any questions?
So how did you get to this screen?
I just clicked on the opportunity. This is just the opportunity card. For Alyssa, yep.
If I'm on that contact, you just put opportunity.
Yep. So you click on opportunity and click on create opportunity if you don't have one. If you do, you just click on it and then it'll bring you straight here. Okay, so now that we're here, this right here is where you're going to spend most of your time. It's called the Documents tab, okay? In the Documents tab, I need to pick a checklist type. So I need to pick residential, for example. And you'll see I've got 3 sections here that show me every single document I need to get paid, basically. So you'll also notice that they're in order. So once I get this listing listed, before it gets under contract, this is all the paperwork I need to get done. Once it gets under contract, this is all the paperwork I need to get done. Once it's closed, or before I can get it paid for it, this is all the paperwork I need to get done, right? This one's short. And you'll also notice as you go through here, there's a CMA here. It's conditionally required. So you don't have to do a CMA for every single listing. Most of you don't. Or exclusive right to sell, that's required. Required. Ooh, an addendum, conditionally required. Input, required. Wire fraud, required, right? So on and so forth. If you're looking through this and you're like, I have no idea what that is, on the bottom here, the very last thing, Dean has made a document that walks you through what each of them are. So that will come in handy. Any questions on this?
Do you add, well, does this list only show up once they get to a certain point? Because like I'm looking at one of mine that's in the watch section and there's nothing under documents. Is that because I haven't signed anything?
Yeah, so it's probably because you haven't picked. So the question was, I don't see these documents here. It's probably because you haven't picked what type of, yep, what type it is, if it's a residential, land, or commercial. So you have to pick the type first, and then it will give you these three options, and then you can go from there. Any other questions? Okay, so when you're in here, you'll do a lot of stuff. You'll add files. We talk a little bit about this tomorrow too. By the way, this magic button right here that I'm not going to push yet is how you link to DocuSign. So this will take me to DocuSign and allow me to sign all of these documents. We'll go through that tomorrow. But yeah, that's kind of the summary. Any questions on the compliance side? Does it seem kind of straightforward? Perfect. Once it's done, so yeah, once it's done, this is what it will look like. If I go into a completed, let's see here. Let's find one that I've done in the past. Let's look up a contact. Let's look up Paul. So Paul is a client that I had a long time ago, but he is all the way done. So this is what it looks like. You can see all the documents in here have been approved. If there was something wrong, it would say rejected, and it would have a little description like over here of why. And so an example, you send it in, it gets rejected. It may be because you're missing an initial in a certain spot, or you might have missed a date in a certain spot or something like that, right? If that's the case, then all you need to do is fix it and then resubmit it up here. So this is already says submitted, but as soon as I add one file, I have the ability to submit it. But you don't want to actually submit all of your documents until you're done, right? You have everything in all three of these sections, then you'll submit it to be reviewed to compliance. Any questions about any of this so far? Awesome. When this comes up, you'll have more questions. That's totally fine. Let's talk through it then. But this kind of gives you an idea, right, of what you're up against, right? There's the list that you're going to need to know, that you'll need to accomplish, so on and so forth. It's pretty straightforward, except for you've never done it before. So once you've done it, then it'll be easy. Yes, Joe?
What tab is it that we were talking about with the owner and the address? How do we get it done?
The owner and the address and details? Yeah, so details, yep. Buyer profile is what we'll talk about on Friday when it has to do with the app. And so after you've done so any other questions on compliance? Okay, you ready for the second most important thing that you'll learn in this class? You have to notify the brokerage within 3 days that you are under contract, okay? So I'm gonna show you how to do that right now. So the way you're gonna do that is in offers, you're gonna create an offer. So I'll go through here and I'll add an offer. So you get under contract, we'll call it under contract, I don't know, for this offer, or initial offer, whatever you wanna do. Create offer. You'll go through here, fill out the details of the offer. This is the date, here's the close date, this is the address, we'll throw that one in. That is an address, oh, there we go. Parties, this is who represents the seller, this is who represents the buyer, this is the associate's name for the seller. This is how much the house is worth. I always just put cash. You don't need to divide how much of the purchase price is cash and how much is loan, because Most people fake those numbers anyway. So we'll say it's 700,000. Earnest money, you can do a percentage or you can just do the actual amount, right? You can basically fill this out. The most important part of this is cash, right? So when you're going through your Rep C, whether you're a buyer or a seller, is what the purchase price is. That's the most important part of this whole thing, okay? Once you figure out and you have what the purchase price is and you have everything in here, here you go. Then let's change our response here. Yes. So notice my commissions tab is grayed out. You see that? This is grayed out because I have not accepted the offer yet. So I created the offer, but I haven't accepted it yet. So let's say I hit accept. Now the commissions tab is available. And the commissions tab is how you notify. So in order to be able to notify the brokerage, you have to create an offer first. That make sense?
Would you put every offer you receive?
Ooh, great question. Question was, should I put every offer I receive on here? So you have to have record of every offer you receive. This is a long way to do that, right? Because that takes a lot of time. The other option is to take a PDF of all of your offers, go into documents, and down here you can add a custom folder. And look, there's already one that's made called extra offers. I'm sure Dean put that in there for this exact reason, right? And then I can add my offers in here as just a document. Just put the PDF in there and throw it in there. Because we just have to have like the record of it. We don't actually care about what they're offering because you didn't accept it. So now that I've got the commissions tab open, I have to go through here and make sure this all looks good. My MCA rejected the commission because I submitted a garbage commission. That's why this says that. Because this is a fake account. But once you look through, you think everything is good, then you'll hit submit. A quick note is that you'll have situations where you have a referral fee or something. Whenever that happens, you're going to click on add another agent and then scroll to the bottom and add item, and you'll pick up from here. So for example, you have a deduction. So a deduction could be like a transaction coordinator, right? A Jen Gray. You need to pay Jen, right? So you can do that here through a deduction. You have an outside referral, right? Somebody who you're sending your friend out to Wisconsin because you know the best agent out in Wisconsin. Oh, I didn't even talk about referrals yet. I have one job. Oh my gosh. I'm glad I realized that. We'll talk about this in just a second, but this is how you do it, right? You can send out an outside referral. Yeah.
What about the little, like, neighbor referral? Hey, call my mom, she wants to sell her house. It's like $150 referral.
That is a good question. That's not really part of the transaction usually, right? That's kind of like under the table, but not really under the table. That's kind of like up to you to figure out how you want to do that. But you're right. So you can give like a bonus to your people for up to $250 for referring people to you. You can't say that you will. That makes sense. You can't like be like, anybody who sends me someone this week, I'll give $250 to. I'll buy you a new TV or whatever it is. Right? It doesn't have to be cash. It can be an item, but it can't be an item of value of more than $250. And you can't advertise it. Okay?
You can't post on Facebook saying, I have a stack of gift cards.
No. Nope. You can't advertise it. You can reward the behavior after. That makes sense? So you can ask for a referral and then send it after. But yeah. Yeah, it's tricky because they just stay away from there because they're trying to avoid like bribery, basically, right? Because then the industry becomes who can buy the best thing for $250, right? Exactly, right? Who can buy the best referrals? So that's what we're trying to avoid. Anyway, so I hit submit. It asked me if I want to donate. I'm going to say no for now, but I would always recommend to donate to KW Cares. Hit apply. Boom, done. Okay? That's it. That's getting through the transaction and opportunities. The next thing I'm going to show you is probably my favorite topic of discussion, in this whole boot camp thing because it's the one people don't realize the most. But do you have any questions about opportunities or compliance up to this point? Okay, Sherry, how are we doing?
Doing good. Sorry, I couldn't unmute myself.
No, you're good. Okay, awesome. All right, so let's talk about referrals for just a second, which is what I was supposed to talk about before. When you're calling your people and they say, hey, I'm interested to buy or sell, but I'm moving to Arizona, what do? Find an agent in Arizona. Yes. Guys, this is a huge aspect of real estate. How many of you are from Utah? Raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. So you two are not from Utah, right? You probably both have extremely well connected with some state. What state is it? California. Washington, right? So all your peeps down in Washington or California, you should not keep in contact with. What's a good way to say that? You should keep in contact with those people. I don't need to use a double negative. Keep in contact with those people because you can get a referral fee from those people. It's the same conversation you're having as you would with anybody else in your SOI, right? Hey, Carl, how you doing? Oh, so good. How's life out there in Washington? Oh, it's really good. We're actually thinking of selling. Oh, really? I actually know the best agent down there. Let me get you in contact with him. I'll have him reach out later today. Oh, really? Okay, cool, right? I mean, like not quite that conversation, but something along those lines, right? So when you're doing that, I can look up, what part of Washington are you from, Cindy? Olympia. Oh, wow. Missed a Y. Olympia, Washington. So I can look up Olympia, Washington. I can zoom in here. Oh, that's opposite. There we go. And I could say, okay, just judging off of what is happening. Just judging off of, please don't freak out. Come on now. Okay. Just judging off of this, I can sort by closed units because I want to get the best. I do want to get the best person out there. I want to get the one that knows what they're doing, right? So I like to base that off of closed units. You could also do that off of listings sold, right? There's all kinds of things, but it looks like Sean Maxey is the top of the list. So let's check him out. So Sean has sold almost 300 units in his day. That's a lot, right? Let's do the math. If he's been in business for 10 years, which he says he's been in business since 15 years, so that's 20 units a year. That's a good amount, right? Sean knows what he's doing. So I could call up Sean and just say, hey, Sean, this is Josh Barrett with KW Westfield in Utah. I have a potential referral out there for you. One of my friends is moving out there, but I just wanted to know, how do you run your business? What sets you apart as an agent, right? I'm going to grind Sean for at least 2 minutes because this is my friend I'm sending out there, right? I want to make sure that I'm sending my friend to someone who's competent and knows what they're talking about, okay? So use this. I have a buyer right now that was looking for a duplex out in Texas because they called me up. I posted on Facebook. They called me up and said, Josh, we're trying to figure out what we want to do with our life, but we're moving to Texas. So we know that doesn't really help you. Like, you can't really help us. My response was like, no, absolutely. I can help you. I know the best agent out there. What are you looking for? Like, tell me about where your life situation is right now, right? It's an easy conversation to have. And we limit ourselves by thinking we are area-specific real estate agents. We're not. We're professional real estate agents that know what we're talking about when it comes to the industry, and we know people in every part of the country. Okay? Is that helpful?
Are you, like, should I have access to see all those? Because, like, I pulled something up on the map and I see, like, the numbers, but then.
Yeah, so if it pulls up no agents found, you might need to either zoom out or zoom farther in. So like if I go out to here or here,
Yeah.
no, it still has a ton.
I'm like, I mean, I've done both. And I can see like the green dots and numbers.
Oh, well then maybe it's a cookies thing again. Are you in incognito? It might be a cookies thing. I'm not sure. Sometimes it's just fickle like that, right? Yes?
So at what point do you want to start referring, like once you find out that they're moving and that you know you can't help them?
Once you know that they're interested, right? Once you would probably set up an appointment with them, right? Because then you're just having the other agent set up an appointment, right?
That's kind of where I was at. I just sent a referral down to St. George, and I'll but qualify them
Uh-huh.
and then send it out.
Perfect. Yep, exactly. Yep. So you'll basically meet with them, tell them how to get started. Like, have you gotten pre-approved yet? Right? If it's a buyer, right? Have you gotten pre-approved yet? What does that look like? Are you making income? What's your salary look like? Oh, you're making 40K. Okay, that's a pretty decent salary. You'll probably qualify for anywhere between 200 to 300K. I don't know. I'm not a lender. That's not my profession. But let me get you in touch with someone down there that knows the area better, knows what you can get. Right? That's the conversation. That's the script that you're using. Really quick, when you find that person, so let's say it's Sean Maxey, this little button right here next to his name, this is the magic button to send the referral. So if I click on this button, I can choose the amount of the referral fee. I can choose the acceptance deadline. So usually I give them the full amount. Like, why would I give them less than 3 days? I don't know. If it's like urgent, then maybe less. But no competent agent that is doing this many deals is going to miss your phone call or not call you back in a few hours. And if they don't call you back in a few hours, call someone else. And then when they call you back, say, sorry, I had a referral, but I didn't hear back from you in time, right? Jason Munoz, price minimum, price max. So these are just basic things. And then I can add my contact here. So let's say, for example, it is Alyssa. Oh, 2 L's. So let's say it's Alyssa Randall. It autofills with all of her information here because I found her in my database. And the other agent won't see any of this until he accepts my referral. That makes sense? He won't see any of my contact information until he says, I agree to the 25% that I will pay you once I close this client. Okay? So this is kind of like a contract, basically. No, they won't counter it. I think it's possible to counter it, but no one will. You have that. That's why you call people first, right? That's why you call someone like Sean and you say, hey, Sean, I have a referral. Tell me about you running your business.
So you'd call before you send it, not right?
Absolutely. Always before. Yep. And then say like, hey, because you don't want to send it to someone that you don't like, right? So if you're having, in fact, you don't even have to bring up that you have a for sure referral. Just say like, I have someone that might be interested in that area. Tell me about how you run your business, right? Because you want to make sure that you like them. Because if you don't like them, your friend probably doesn't like them, right? Any questions?
You have to send them to if they're buying and selling.
Do you have to send them to if they're buying and selling? That's the question. The answer is questionable. I mean, like, they have to create 2 opportunities, but, you know, I don't know. It's like, I mean, usually with any competent KW agent, they're like, this is not as necessary. I mean, I've had experiences where I didn't actually use this sending out, but I used it to find the number, right? Because they may not use command for this purpose. They may send you an old-fashioned document or whatever it is, right? So I would be less worried about them paying you as long as you get something signed in the first week or so, right? And plus, if it's your friend, you can just call your friend and be like, don't sign anything until if you wanted to.
Well, if they sign this and then become their listing and selling agent, or listing and buying agent, do they owe you a commission on both of those?
Oh, good question. So if the question was, if they become their buying and selling agent, do you get a listing on both of those? It depends. So if they are a seller first and then a buyer, probably yes. I mean, you got to have that conversation. You know, it should be yes, right? I have this happening right now with Taylor Frampton, right? I have a buyer and a seller who's doing both right now, right? And Taylor is representing them, and so I'm getting a referral for both of those sides, right? But If it was my buyer that I gave to Taylor a year ago, who become a seller a year later, right? Then that's not my work. He cultivated that. He kept them as his client, right? That's no longer me getting a referral bonus. Does that make sense? So you got to remember that you're sending people out to these people, but it's kind of a one-time deal, right? You're kind of giving them a free client, and they're compensating you off the first deal because of it. Okay? That make sense? So you can keep calling them and you can keep cultivating them. And so when your friend moves again, he may call you back instead of the other agent. And if that happens, then you call the other agent and you say, hey, you called me back. I want another referral fee. And in that scenario, absolutely, they're going to pay you a referral fee, right? Because they didn't do the work to get that call from your client. But if you don't get that call, then they deserve it, right? That make sense? That's why we have 4 calls a year. Cool. Well, we went 4 minutes over, but we're fine. So your homework is to create a fake opportunity. So go into a contact card. By the way, you should do this for yourself. You should create a contact that is you. You should create an opportunity off of your contact card and walk through this whole process that we're going to go through in boot camp as yourself so that you can see what happens when you do these things, okay? But create a fake opportunity of yourself and assign a listing to it. So going back to here, or back to the opportunity, if I create an opportunity, I don't want to create one. If I go back into this one, I assigned a listing up here to it, right? Or fill out the property details. If it's a buyer, there's not going to be a listing link to it, right? Because your buyer doesn't have a listing. So you just have to put the property information inside the opportunity. So good? Was that like super confusing or like reasonably confusing? It's only one of the two. Just kidding. Feel good? Is that helpful? Okay. Awesome. So tomorrow we're going to go through DocuSign. We're going to talk through best practices of DocuSign. We're going to literally create your DocuSign account if it hasn't been created yet. And we're going to make sure it's linked properly. And then from there, on Thursday, we're going to go through designs and campaigns. And then on Friday, we're going to talk about the consumer side of things. So the app, your website, landing pages, that whole works. Okay? I'm going to stop my share.